All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Aquarium Online Academy. My name is Allie. I'm part of our education staff here at the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach, California. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be talking about a really cool subject today, plankton. Now, I know not a lot might come to mind when you think of plankton, but hopefully we're going to learn a lot about just how cool plankton is. Now, if you do have any questions, I definitely encourage you to text them on in. Our number is right below here. It is 562-286-1838. I'm going to have my friend Emily over at the computer. She will be taking your questions, your comments, maybe even your observations. We'd love to get feedback from you. But then I also have my friend Kaya, who's actually right behind the computer here, and she's putting up all these awesome images behind me. So again, if you do want to text on in, our number's here. But if you're watching this when we're not live, you can always email us in. And that email is live@lbaop.org. And we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Alrighty, but let's go ahead and start thinking about plankton. What comes to mind when you think of plankton? Let's see. Probably small. Small is usually a good one. Well, plankton, a lot of times they are really small, but it's actually a really, really broad word that covers a lot of different kinds of animals, even some that are a little bit bigger. Now, plankton is anything that is a drifter or something that cannot go against a current. So we have quite a few kinds of plankton here today, but we're going to explore a couple differences. All right, now plankton, I wanted to put this up behind us because plankton is the base of pretty much every food chain. So let's go ahead and look at this. Look how diverse this is. Now, this is our tropical webcam here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. This is actually live, so you can watch this anytime. This is what's happening right here, right now. So let's see. Do you see any plankton in here? No, I don't see any plankton that really stands out to me. But believe it or not, there is plankton in the water, and it is sustaining this entire ecosystem. Now, it's very, very important because plankton really starts from the bottom. So actually, let's go over to our camera and we're gonna explore a little bit here. Alrighty, so I'm gonna move these out of the way just a little bit because we will definitely look at that later. And we are going to talk about plankton. Now, plankton are little things in the water. Again, sometimes they can be a bit bigger, but most of the time they are pretty small, and they are drifters, things that cannot go against a current, but things that also don't really settle down. So plankton, we can start with phytoplankton at the bottom of our food chain. So we're going to have this be phytoplankton. Now, let's go ahead and stop right there and let's talk about phytoplankton. Does this word look familiar to you? Have you heard of phytoplankton before? Well, let's look at, we have plankton right here, but this first word, phyto, does that look familiar to you? Or maybe have you seen it in any other words in maybe your science classes? Yes, this phyto here refers to photosynthesis. Oops, I'm going to push that up just a little bit. So this phytoplankton, the very, very base of the food chain, refers to photosynthesis, which means what? When we think of photosynthesis, a lot of times we think of trees, we think of plants on land, but actually, a lot of it's happening in the water. So our photosynthesis is happening with our plankton because they do pretty much exactly the same thing. They take CO2 and water, and in the presence of sunlight, they can create sugar that they use as food, as energy, and oxygen. Now, when they do that, of course, there are other things that eat those phytoplankton. Now, phytoplankton can be eaten by larger animals, but there's also another kind of plankton that eats them. Now, this is one of my favorite kinds of plankton, and it is a group of plankton called zooplankton. Now, we kind of took apart this word down here a little bit, phytoplankton. So let's do the same up here. Let's talk about zooplankton. So we have this word here, zoo, and plankton. Now, what comes to mind when you hear the word zoo? Maybe going to the zoo, seeing some animals, giraffes, elephants, things like that. Well, unfortunately, there are no plankton that are giraffes and elephants, but zooplankton is actually animal plankton. So one of my favorite animal plankton is a copepod. It looks just like this, has two little antennas, has a nice eye in the middle, and a little body like this. And it swims around and it eats phytoplankton. So again, both of these things are plankton, but they are very different. This one, phytoplankton, makes its own food, and zooplankton consumes other things. Actually, I think we have a video of some plankton that we're going to put up here. So I want you guys to make some observations because we do have video of plankton. Now here is some plankton. Of course, this is very, very zoomed in. They're very, very, very tiny. But actually, these guys with the little antennas, those are copepods. And they have one big, nice eye in the middle. So you can see they come in all different shapes and forms. And you can see they move a lot. Now, of course, some animals might stay plankton their whole entire life, like a copepod here. Whereas some plankton, they might start off as plankton and then settle down into something else. So animals that spend their whole life as plankton, like these copepod, are called holoplankton. H-O-L-O plankton. Again, we're breaking those words down today. Holoplankton. And a really good example of a holoplankton is, I know this is silly because it's a little plushy, but it is krill. Has anyone heard of krill before? Yeah, exactly. This is a little plushie of a krill. And krill are really, really tiny, almost like a shrimp. And they go through the water column, and they are an excellent food source for a variety of animals. Now, they provide food for small fish, but also things like this. Does anyone know what that is? It is the largest animal on Earth, and it eats plankton. This is the blue whale. Now, the blue whale, again, is the largest animal to ever be on our planet, larger than the largest dinosaur, believe it or not. And we have them off of our coast here over the summer months. So this is just the top section of a blue whale. This is the very tip, and then its tail would be all the way back here. But they can eat thousands and thousands of pounds of krill every single day. So what they do to get all those little krill out of the water, well, they don't really go after each individual krill. That would be a little hard because, again, plankton in general is pretty tiny. And these guys are so big. So what they do is they kind of make a filter with their baleen in their mouth. Now, baleen is actually a structure they have instead of teeth. You can almost think of it like a big mustache in their mouth. It's all this structure hanging down. And we might have a picture of it, maybe from another kind of whale, but same thing. So we'll get that up for you in just a second. It's made out of the same stuff that our hair and our fingernails is made out of. It's called keratin. Well, it comes down from the roof of their mouth, and they can actually take in thousands of gallons of water and push that water out through the baleen. All the water goes on through, and all the krill stay behind. Now, again, largest animal on the planet eats it, and that is a blue whale, but also the largest oh, here we go. Perfect. That's a great view. Thank you, Miss Kaya. Does everyone see that kind of hanging down from the roof of this mouth. Now, this is a humpback whale, but it still has the same structure in its mouth. And they can use this baleen to filter out all of those critters. Now, another really cool animal that uses krill specifically, or plankton in general, is another really, really big animal. And that is this right here. Now, this is a whale shark. Now, is it a whale? Is it a shark? It's a shark. Now, sharks are fish. They are cartilaginous fish, which means their skeleton isn't made out of bones like ours, but it's made out of cartilage, like our ears, like our nose. And this is the largest cartilaginous fish. Now, I actually have a jaw right here from a whale shark, and it's about this big. So I can definitely fit in it pretty well. So you can see that they open up their mouth. You can see in this picture here. And they swim with their mouth open to collect a lot of plankton. Now, it's not quite, they don't have baleen like our whale does, but they actually have gill rakers, things in their gills to help them catch all those tiny pieces of plankton. Now, I actually have some krill. If you guys want to check it out, let's go over here. Let's check it out. Now, this is what grown-up krill look like. You can see each one is just the tip of my finger. So you can see each individual krill here. But I did go upstairs to our live food exhibit, and I grabbed actually some plankton for us. So let's see if we can explore this a little bit. Now, this here is just plain seawater. That is just plain seawater. But here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, we do also have a live food exhibit behind the scenes to feed some of our animals. Now, by just looking at this, do you see anything in there? I'm going to move this over just a little bit. Maybe zoom in a little bit. All right, perfect. Does everyone see dots? Yes, those little dots might be moving. These are tiny, tiny little brine shrimp. Now, these are approximately 48 hours old, but these are just tiny little brine shrimp, and we can feed them to a variety of our animals. Now, I'm going to do a quick check here because this is animal plankton. So, would it be zooplankton or phytoplankton? Zooplankton, exactly. This is our animal plankton, and we actually feed this. We feed these guys maybe other kinds of phytoplankton, and so it's pretty cool. You can actually see if I take a whole pipette worth, and I'm going to put some right in this just seawater. Let's see if we can even see them. Oh, you can see them just a little bit there. So again, most plankton is really tiny, but this species, these brine shrimp here, almost like a little tiny version of a shrimp. This is actually going to be plankton their whole life. So again, that word we used before, I'm going to write that word down for you. That word is called, I'm going to back up a little bit here. We're a little zoomed in. That word is called holoplankton. Again, we've broken down the words quite a bit here. So there's that word plankton, and holo means that it stays the same. So it means it stays the same throughout its life, which means that when it's little, it's going to be plankton. When it grows up into its adult stage, it will still be plankton. Now, if an animal starts off as plankton and changes throughout its lifetime into something that is not plankton, something that can go against a current, that is what we call meroplankton. Again, there's that word plankton, but mero means that it changes. Now I want everyone to kind of think for a moment, what kinds of animals do you think might be a baroplankton? Can you think of any that might start as a plankton and maybe grow up to be not a plankton? Something that can go against the current, something that can walk on the bottom? Let's see. Kaya, do you have any photos of anything? Maybe a really good one is a sea star. A sea star is a really great, actually, pretty much all of these animals in this exhibit here. So this is part of our northern California touch pool here. And so you can see a variety, oh, and there's some fish, but you can see a variety of different species here, like the sea star, like the sea anemone, and that fish that just went by. So actually pretty much everything that you're seeing here is a marrow plankton. When these are born, they are so microscopic, and they float throughout the water column until they settle. And so especially the sea anemones, they're definitely going to settle because they don't really move too much. But same as the sea stars, they're going to settle on the bottom, but they do start off as plankton. So one other kind of plankton that I'm going to talk about a little more in depth is actually probably one of my favorite plankton. And it is, let's see if we can actually have them guess. Let's see. It is sometimes you can see through it. They can be pretty big. Sometimes you're not going to want to go swimming if they're nearby. Any idea what this could be? Let's see. Let's put up a picture of some of our plankton that I'm talking about right now. Now, these are holoplankton, which means that they stay plankton their whole lives. Now, again, I'm going to quiz you. Are these zooplankton or phytoplankton? Zooplankton, yes, animal plankton. This is a jellyfish. Does that look familiar to anyone? Yeah, there are hundreds of different kinds of jellyfish, and they are plankton. They can't really move against a current. So have you ever seen maybe jellyfish moving in their natural habitat? Here's a really great view. I want you to take a look and make some observations for a moment. Now, what do you notice about the jellies? Yeah, you notice they're kind of moving and they're kind of contracting. Now, we talked about how plankton can't really move on their own. Well, these guys, they actually can contract, as you're seeing here. Oh, there's a great view here. These are sea nettles. They are contracting, and that helps them to move. But if a big current, or for example, a big wave came and went right on over them, they would go in that direction. So that's kind of what we mean by plankton, that if a big current came, it would just kind of go right on over to the side that it's being pushed. So plankton, like these jellies right here. Now jellies, again, they're not actually fish. These are what we call a cnidarian, and they are invertebrates. And one characteristic of a cnidarian is their stinging cells. Now, what do you think that they might want to use their stinging cells for? Not really to maybe scare anyone, but they actually do use them to catch their food. Though they actually float through the water column, they can't really go after their food like other animals can, but they float through the water column and they can sting what's in their path. You actually may have been stung by a jellyfish before, and again, they're not trying to eat you per se, but they just sting on contact. Now, here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, we actually have a jellyfish touch pool. And it is so cool because it's a touch pool. Now, you might be thinking, hold on, well, that doesn't seem very safe, huh? Well, don't worry. The ones that we have to touch here are moon jellies. So I'm going to put up a picture, of these awesome jellies right here. Now, these jellies are plankton, of course, but they are really, really mild. Their sting can't get through human skin. So although it is stinging you, again, remember, they don't have a choice. They just kind of go with the flow. We can't feel it. So you can actually touch our jellies here at the aquarium on either side and you'll be fine, which is actually pretty interesting. So even though they do have stingers, we can't feel it, but other animals like those little tiny brine shrimp we saw, well, that's what we feed to these. So they definitely can sting other animals. And they use their tentacles to sting. Now, there are a couple things going on underneath the jelly. So let's kind of look at it a little bit closer here. So there is the big round part. Now, that is called the bell. That is the main portion of their body. And then they have, oh, there's one coming right up here. So then they have these circles in the middle. Does anyone know what those circles might be? Well, I'll give you a hint. They don't have a brain. They don't have eyes. They don't have bones. They don't even have blood. But one thing they do have is a stomach. And for that matter, these have 4 stomachs. So they have stomachs that they put that brine shrimp into. So these, again, zooplankton, animal plankton, and they sting other zooplankton, other animal plankton like those brine shrimp. And they sting with the outside. So the little skirts that are on the outside of the bell that almost look like little eyelashes or little hairs, those are their tentacles. Now the tentacles are going to be around the outside of the bell. And that's what does the stinging. That's what captures all of their food. But then they pass it into their oral arms. Now their oral arms are the things in the middle. Now does everyone see this kind of area here? It looks a little ruffly. Yeah, those are their oral arms. Those oral arms can help them to pass their food up and into their stomachs. And actually each stomach has a tiny little hole underneath. Depending on the jelly, they're all a little bit different. Of course, there's hundreds of species, but they can put that food right in their bellies. And for this species, because they are so see-through, you can actually see the shrimp inside of them. And it's little pink and orange. So I encourage you to see if maybe next time you're here at a touch pool, see if you can see if they just ate, because it's pretty cool to see if they have. Now we'll go back to some other jellies here in just a moment, and they look a little bit different. Of course, they have, there's a beautiful picture. This is our crystal jelly. So again, another species of jelly. And their tentacles, you'll see, are much longer. Now, it looks like this jelly's upside down right now. So if we were to take this jelly and put it on the other side, it would look a little bit different. So that would look more like the jelly we're used to. But they do have these tentacles on the outside. Now, their tentacles are much longer than the moon jelly, and their sting is a little bit different too. So they all can eat a little bit different types of things out in the ocean. Some jellies eat other jellies. Some jellies can even eat fish. So it really depends. Now we actually have a couple questions coming on in. Oh, great question. Malaya, do whales also ingest phytoplankton? Yes. That is a great question. So whales, when they're opening up their mouth and they take in thousands of gallons of water and lots of yummy, nice krill, maybe some fish get in there too, and they push it on out. Now, most of the phytoplankton actually goes on back to the ocean. So most of it typically isn't maybe big enough also to get trapped in that baleen. It might be tiny little things. They might get some kelp maybe in their mouth or something like that, but they typically spit it out. But they will, from time to time, eat a little bit of phytoplankton, but most of their diet is going to be zooplankton. Great question, Malaya. And how do phytoplankton reproduce? Oh, that's a really great question. Here we go. It's a little complicated here. So they are similar to plants. They are an algae, if you will. So they have a very similar life history to to plants. And sometimes, well, I'm not sure. Can they asexually reproduce? They can bud off, yeah. So they can bud off, so they can asexually reproduce as well. So that means that they don't need a partner to reproduce with. They can actually just kind of split off themselves. So that's another really good question. Awesome. So let's go ahead and go back to our jellies here from just a moment ago. Now we were looking at those crystal jellies. Now, crystal jellies almost look like they kind of glow as well. Does everyone see that? Yeah, it almost looks like they glow. Now, some jellies have really cool adaptations that helps them to glow. So, oh, perfect. Is this the flower hat jelly? Yes, awesome. So my friend Kaya put up this picture here. This is the flower hat jelly. And what do you notice about it? It's light. Yeah, it's bright colored. So some jellies actually have bioluminescence. Have you heard that word before? It's a little bit big, but bioluminescence is when they create light and can actually project it out. Now, some jellies can actually use biofluorescence, which is a little bit different. It's when they can take in light and reflect it back. But it looks very, very similar. But it's really awesome to see if you have a chance to see this bioluminescence. Now, ooh, this is another really good one. This is some coral that is biofluorescent. So this coral here is biofluorescent. It's a really, really great example here. Now, coral is related to jellies. If you pretty much take the jelly and flip it over, shrink it down, and then build a nice calcium carbonate skeleton around the edge, that's very, very similar to a jelly. They are both cnidarians, which means that jellies and coral can sting. Alrighty, but we talked a lot today here about plankton. We talked about what makes plankton a plankton. Plankton are drifters. They drift through the water column their whole lives, for the most part, as plankton stage. They don't settle down. They don't swim against a current. But some of them can actually change later in life depending on what kind of animal that is. Again, that is called meroplankton. Whereas if they are the same throughout their whole life, that is holoplankton. Now we have some examples of plankton right behind me here. Now I want you guys to take a look and look at all of the different shapes you see. Some of these look like aliens. They're definitely very cool. You can sometimes tell, oh, maybe I think I know what that animal might be when it grows up, like this little shrimp right here. But sometimes you may have no idea. They change drastically throughout their lifetime. But thank you so much for coming and talking about plankton today. And of course, one of my favorite planktons, that was jellies. Now we have lots of other great programming throughout the day. So I encourage you to participate if you would like to. I think our next one is on fish, which is a lot of fun as well. So thank you so much for coming and have a great rest of your day.